People get really weird about spoilers for Inside, and after playing it, I kind of understand why. It's one of those games that's difficult to talk about without feeling like you're taking something away from the experience. Not because it's built around a massive twist every 5 minutes, but because so much of what makes it work comes from trying to understand what the fuck this game means. You start the game with a forest background, and you're shoved into this world with a child running and search dogs and people following suit. You don't know who you are, you know even less about who they are, and the game doesn't seem particularly interested in explaining any of what's going on. And I genuinely think that the game is best because of that. One of my favourite things about this intro is the atmosphere. You're shoved into this world, a lot like this kid probably, and you're just told to run. It's uncomfortable that the game just shoves you into this fight or flight situation, and one of your two options isn't allowed. But this produces the atmosphere the game needs. You'll walk past a group of people moving together without questioning it. You'll find yourself in places that clearly have a purpose, but you'll never be entirely sure what that purpose actually is. There are stretches of this game where nothing dangerous happens, yet I still want to get out of there as quickly as possible because I still felt as though I was being monitored. Mainly thanks to the big fuck off of the light panel with people walking past it every 2 seconds. This is how the game gets under your skin. And because it refuses to explain itself, I found myself paying much closer attention to the environment. Normally, if a game gives me an objective marker and a minimap, I'm following it and ignoring half of what's going on in the background. Inside doesn't really allow you to do that. I started noticing the way people behaved, the machinery operating behind the fences, and the changes to the environment as I got deeper into the game. I wasn't actively trying to analyze it at first, I just wanted answers. I genuinely think not explaining everything made me pay more attention because the game wasn't going to fill in the blanks for me. I needed to do that. I don't really need every mystery neatly wrapped up and explained to me like it's a fucking map pack game theory.
Hello internet, welcome to game.
Hey, fuck off, get out of it. This isn't the type of video this is. Apologies for that. Games don't always take that risk. A lot of them are so worried about the player missing something important that they end up repeating themselves constantly. Objectives get restated, characters explain themes you've already probably understood. Important moments lose some of their impact because they're immediately followed by somebody telling you exactly what you were supposed to take away from it and what you're supposed to be feeling.
Samurai found me and nursed me back to health. I thought you were dead. If I knew you had survived,
I buried mother and father.
Inside never felt like it was talking down to me. It always felt as though it was moving, and whether or not you were following it was up to you. Then there are the puzzles, which I don't think I appreciated enough whilst I was actually playing the game. The game never really teaches you in a traditional sense. There aren't tutorial screens interrupting things every 10 minutes to tell you what buttons to press. There isn't any writing on the wall, there isn't any green or yellow or red or whatever colour paint on the walls. Instead, it gives you a room to experiment with that your good old monkey brain of yours would like to pull that lever. You will drag that box across the room. You'll try something, realise that it doesn't work, stand there for a few seconds questioning your intelligence, then eventually notice the painfully obvious thing you've completely ignored due to their light casting a shadow. Which happened to me on more than a number of occasions. The annoying part is that almost every time I got stuck, the answer was something the game had already shown me before, which meant that the game wasn't being unfair, I was just being a knobhead. It reminded me of the old Nintendo games. Super Mario Bros. Teaches the player through interactions. You experiment, you fail, and you gradually build a repertoire and an understanding of how the game's world works. Inside does the same thing. It trusts you to figure things out. The more I thought about it afterwards, the more impressed I became with how carefully put together this entire game was. The game teaches you without tutorials, tells a story without lengthy exposition, and somehow manages to keep you invested while refusing to answer pretty much every question it raises. Any one of those things can go horribly wrong if they aren't handled properly. Inside somehow makes all of them work together while simultaneously abstaining, which is bloody impressive on their part. By the time I reached the ending, I knew I'd enjoyed myself. I just had absolutely no clue what I was supposed to make of everything I'd just been subjected to. Then made the mistake of trying to read people's theories online. Suddenly, I had even more questions, and some people had interpretations that sounded quite miraculously intact.
Which could in itself signify the new life this creature has gained from its escape, or its death after being unplugged from the machine and enduring such a colossal fall.
And you had others that sounded insane. I don't know whether Playdead had one specific meaning in mind when they actually made Inside. Maybe they did, fucked if I know. Either way, I don't think I actually want them to come out years later and explain everything to me. They could have easily thrown in a few notes for collectors. Within those notes have somebody explain everything about the game and then just call it a day. But they didn't. I think the game deserves a lot of this credit because of the risk that they took. It would have been really easy for Inside to come across as a vague, for the sense of being vague, sort of game. Plenty of stories hide behind ambiguity, but none of them really say anything about it. I never got that feeling with this game. Whether you agree with someone else's interpretation or not, the fact that people are still discussing this game years later about the impression they're left behind is truly amazing to me. When I think back on Inside, I don't really remember any individual puzzle, but I do remember descending further and further into ground and wondering, I'm sorry, what the fuck? Who the fuck was that? Why was this pulsing? What the fuck? Why the fuck does this exist? Who the fuck made any of this? I remember stopping for a few seconds just to watch whatever strange thing was going on in the background. But the thing is, I've played games that have lasted 50 hours and forgotten about 90% of it within about 2 days. I finished Inside in one evening years ago, and somehow I ended up still thinking about it till this day. I still don't know exactly what the ending means. Honestly, I don't think I really care to know either. All I know is that I finished Inside, closed the game, and then spent the next few years thinking about why the fuck I ended up as this.